Hello guys, welcome to classroom. As you all know, we are still in the blood vessel, but today we'll be focusing on the venules and the vein. And each one we'll be talking about what they are, their structure, and what their functions are. You know, the venules when blood the metabolic waste diffuses back to the bloodstream, it goes straight to the venous. So the venous collects deoxygenated blood from the capillary bed and then begins the process of returning it back to the heart. And then, as we've known what the venous is, let's go over to the structure. They have thin wall. Their walls are thin, and they have larger lumen. You know what lumen is? Lumen is just an opening, like a space in a tract or cavity or a tube that allows things to flow, either air or fluid. And then the venules, they have larger lumen compared to the arteries. They have larger lumen and they have less smooth muscle, but as they mesh together, as they merge, they increase in size and smooth muscles too. And then what are the function? Their function is they serve as a site, like a primary site where white blood cell can easily migrate from the bloodstream into the tissue to fight any infection in the tissue. And then they also serves as the starting point from the starting point where the oxygenated blood is carried to the heart. So they start the process of carrying the oxygenated or the bad blood, the one that is mixed with metabolic waste, back to the heart. And then we move over to the vein. The vein is the blood vessels that carry the oxygenated blood from the body to the heart, but except one vein, which is the pulmonary vein, and that's the only vein that carries oxygenated blood, as we know. And then the structure, same as the arteries, they have three structures. They have the tunica intima, the tunica media, and the tunica externa. The tunica intima, which we know is just made up of the endothelium, like the endothelium cell, once layered, like they are one cell thick, they're not that thick. And then the tunica media, which made up of but normally we know that it's made up of very smooth muscle and elastic tissue, but for veins they have less smooth muscle and elastic tissue. Then their tunica externa is made up of more of connective tissue that acts as strength. And then in some large veins, they have what they call valve, and valve is made up of tunica intima, strengthened by connective tissue. And then what do this valve do? What's their function? They prevent backflow of blood. Like when they open, blood passes through, and they close to prevent the blood from going back to where they are coming from. And mostly they are found a lot in the veins that is coming from the limbs to prevent backflow. And then this vein, they have larger lumen. Yeah, they have larger lumen to reduce the resistance of blood flow under low pressure. We know that blood that are passing through this vein, they don't have pressure as much as the artery. The artery, there is pressure, but this one that is going back to the vein, they have no pressure. And you might be wondering, so how does what pushes this blood up? Like what does that? What helps them to carry this blood back to the heart? There are different ways, different tricks that the body uses to that makes this possible. And the first one is the skeletal muscle. They say muscles that are around the heart and these blood vessels, especially when we walk or we run or we stand, they squeeze those vessels, and that helps it to push further to the heart. And also breathing, and when you breathe in, the distance, the pressure in the chest drops, and then the pressure in the abdomen is tightened, and it helps to push blood that are in those area up to the chest. And then when you breathe out, it helps there's an increase in the pressure in the chest area, which helps to push those blood to the back to the heart. And then, why is the vein important? Why is the vein important? Mostly it starts as a reservoir, because most 2 to 3 of our blood are being stored in the vein. Yeah, are being stored in the vein. And then, because it carries this deoxygenated blood from the capillaries back to the heart for for oxygenation and all those stuff, for transfer of nutrients, and then back to the capillaries for exchange of those nutrients and diffusion of waste products, and then back to the heart again. So that's the function. Hope you understand. For recap, we said that we started with the Venus, which we said that this Venus carries blood, the oxygenated blood from the capillary bed back to the heart, and it starts the process of those carrying of the oxygenated blood back to the heart. And they said the structure of this Venus, they have thin wall and they have wider lumen. And we made mention what the lumen is. The lumen is just a space, an opening from where substances such as fluid or this thing or air can easily pass through in a tract or tube or a cavity. And these venules, as we said, they have larger lumen than the arteries, than the capillaries. And what's their function? Their function is they serve as a primary site for migration of white blood cells into the tissue when needed, and they also start the process of the carriage of the oxygenated blood back to the heart. And then we also talked about the vein. We said the vein carries the oxygenated blood from the body to the heart, except the pulmonary vein, which carries oxygenated blood. And they said the structure, they have different walls, different layers of this vein. They have the tunica intima, the media, and the tunica externa. And then they also I also talked about that the pressure of blood in this vein is very low compared to the arteries, which blood that is passing through it has high pressure, but the one in the vein has low pressure. And I also talked about the tricks the body uses to that helps to push this blood back to the heart. And I made mention of the respiratory muscle, and I said when you breathe in, the pressure, this thing on the chest drops, while the abdomen tightens and helps to push the blood at those in those areas to the chest. And then when you breathe out, it's there's an increase in the pressure in the chest, and then which helps to push the blood around those areas to the heart. And then I also mentioned why the vein is important. I mentioned it serves as a storage, storage, that 2 to 3 of our blood is stored in the vein, and it also help in carrying the oxygenated blood to the heart. Without vein, the oxygenated blood can't go back to the heart. And then I made mention of the valve, that they have veins in the veins. In some large vein, they have valve, especially the veins in the lips, that they have valve. And I made mention that valve is made up of tunica intima and strengthened by connective tissue. And what they do? They prevent backflow of blood. That when blood passes through those veins, it blocks the backflow of blood to from where they are coming from. And I hope you understand. Stay tuned for our next class.